On today's Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, are the Indiana Pacers going to win the NBA championship? What adjustments can be made this series? And we're going to play a game of buy or sell.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Let's get it going on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. I'm your host, Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. Joining me is co-host Danny Cunningham at Locked On Cavs. It's the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast, your teams every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. No games to recap tonight, but there is a huge game to preview on this Saturday night between the Thunder and the Pacers in Game 2 of the NBA Finals, where, Danny, the Pacers are up 1-0 heading into Game number 2. They came in as extraordinary underdogs. What did you make of Game 1, where the Pacers just steal it at the Paycom Center?
Well, all I could think of at the end of that game, and I had this same conversation that you and I are about to have with the normal Saturday night co-host of yours, Gavin Shaw, a few weeks ago. He and I had this conversation after Tyrese Halliburton hit a ridiculous shot to, in that game, force overtime against the New York Knicks in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And Tyrese Halliburton did that against the Knicks. He did it against the Cavs. He did it against the Bucks. And now he has done it to the Oklahoma City Thunder, of course, the team that you cover over at Locked On Thunder every single day. It was just kind of like, hey, first time here, we meet on Tuesdays. But that was certainly the biggest thing. Like, no, I can't say that I didn't see that coming, because when Miles Turner banks in a three from the wing, you're like, I think I kind of know how this one's going to end. I was surprised that I think the thing that stood out to me the most from that game was I was surprised at the inability of the Thunder to capitalize on the opportunities that they created, right? Like I put out a tweet after the first quarter. It was like, the Indiana Pacers are on pace for 36 turnovers. And then I put out a tweet at halftime and I said, the Indiana Pacers are on pace for 36 turnovers. And I thought it was a really bad sign at that moment and I don't remember exactly what the lead was at halftime for the Thunder. I think it was around 12 or something. But the fact that Oklahoma City was not up by like 25, despite the fact that they had forced 18 or 19 turnovers, whatever it is in the first half, that's when it kind of felt like, I don't know which way this is going to go, but I think there's a lot to unpack from that. And I think there are things on both sides here too, not just that the Thunder can do better, but what the Pacers can do better too, that should make for a really exciting Game 2 on Sunday.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing, was the Thunder not capitalizing off of the 24 turnovers that they forced. They only scored 11 points off of those turnovers in the entire game. That's crazy. That just cannot happen. So when you mix that 11 points off of 24 turnovers with your number 2 and number 3 scoring option just didn't show up. They were just dead on arrival, did not produce at all. This is kind of the results you get. Plus, Indiana was a +7 in three-pointers made. You saw Indiana dominate the glass. You saw Indiana have the better fourth quarter, execute better down the stretch, and have the shot, have the moment. Shea had his chance at a Halliburton moment, and he missed it. The play before, that would have put them up 3, and then you play the foul game, then you win and escape 1-0. And we kind of stop spiraling in Bricktown and start celebrating instead. So this is going to be a series that is largely defined, I think, tonight of can the Thunder even this thing back up at 1? Then you go and each team wins a game in Indiana. Then it's a 3-game series. OKC has home court, and you have a lot of fun determining a champion. If the Thunder go down 0-2, I mean, obviously you can't count out a 68-win team and blah, blah, blah. But 0-2 against a team that hasn't played a home game yet, that is this electrifying from 3, it feels like the series is over. What would be your biggest adjustment if you were Oklahoma City?
So I think my biggest adjustment if I'm OKC is to go back to being who you are, right? Like we saw I'm sure you and I can have the conversation as to why Mark Daignault changed the starting lineup before Game 1 of the series, benching Isaiah Hartenstein and putting Cason Wallace in there, which certainly, like, on the surface level, I get. But one of the things, and of course, if you listen to me on Sunday, or if you listen to me over on Lock on Cavs, I cover the Cavs. So one of the things, and I was sort of keeping this in my back pocket as it pertained to the Cavs, but I promise it relates here. One of the things that Kenny Atkinson said during the Cavs first round series against the Miami Heat, because Miami made a change to its starting lineup after game one of that series. And of course, Miami was very much overmatched in that series, and that does not relate to this series. But they put Davion Mitchell in their starting lineup, and Kenny Atkinson was asked about it before game two started. And he essentially said that making a change to your starting lineup is basically the biggest adjustment that would it be an adjustment to go back to being who you were, to go back to the starting lineup that got you here? Because I think you can make the case that Mark Daignault made the biggest adjustment he could made before the series even started. I didn't understand the need to do it. Like I do understand some of the thought process behind it. So if I'm the Thunder, I go back to my normal starting five, and we can have a conversation about what that looks like defensively. We could even have a conversation of, well, the new starting five, so many turnovers, they just didn't capitalize on the other end. But I do think that there is room for them in this series to play that double big lineup. And we didn't see it, I don't believe, at all in game one. I would think that would be something that if I'm OKC, I'd want to go back to. But after you being around this team for, a couple of days since this loss, what do you think the biggest thing, not only that you think they need to do, but what directions do you think they're leaning in, Rylan?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing has been for the team wide is what Chet Holmgren talked about today after practice of just, he was asked how he can be better, and he simply put it as slowing down, playing more under control. I think that this was a Thunder team that did get sped up a little bit, offensively especially. The lights were too bright, whatever phrase you want to use. Like it was a different feeling. You certainly have, Danny. You've gotten real used to that in Cleveland. But, like Chet Holmgren being out of control going to the rim, but also being sped up, but not forceful, like not aggressive, just like literally sped up instead of having any sort of explosiveness around the rim. Like that stuff has to change. They have to settle in and just understand it is another basketball game, kind of lean on their coach speak that they've spit out all season long of being 0-0 and treating every game the same, etc. Obviously hard to do that in game one of the finals, hard to do that at home in game one of the finals, and hard to do that at home in game one of the finals whenever you have a 15-point lead and the crowd is singing along to a song and you feel like you've won game one, but you've got to stay within yourself for 48 minutes. I do think that my adjustment in terms of like lineups would be similar to yours. It would be to have a big man on the floor at all times. I did not like the Thunder closing small. I didn't mind the Thunder starting Cason Wallace, who had started 40 games for them in the regular season, something that they were used to and accustomed to. And I think that it worked, especially defensively, and it has the potential to work offensively. This is a guy in Cason Wallace who was awesome. Isaiah Hartenstein was also awesome in this game off the bench. And the whole reason why you sign Isaiah Hartenstein and why you bring him in and why you bring him off the bench is, hey, now, unlike a year ago, you can blanket the game in 48 minutes of quality center play. Obviously, Chet was not good in game one, but that has to change in game two, or else the Thunder are just going to get swept out of the series. So unless he doesn't perform, this is going to be a point that the Thunder have to make of having a center on the floor at all times to help them manage the glass, help them manage Indiana. The double big lineup, I found it very interesting that in a game that Mark literally calls a feel-out game every single series and literally tried to toss out A.J. Mitchell, he didn't toss this out one time. He tossed out A.J. Mitchell before he tossed out the double big lineup. Like, is there something there that he just thinks it's unplayable against Indiana? I find that very interesting.
I mean, and I think I'm rather qualified to speak on this because the Cavs are one of the other few teams in basketball that has a double big lineup with guys that I think are pretty comparable in terms of Isaiah Hartenstein. I mean, they're not player for player, like they have different skill sets. They're not clones, but he and Jarrett Allen, I think, are similar talent levels. And I think Chet Holmgren and Evan Mobley are similar talent levels, right? Like, I think that is a pretty good comp. And it's not to say that the double big lineup was perfect against Indy. It certainly wasn't. I think a lot of that had to do with Jarrett Allen, but go back and watch game 3 that the Cavs played, the one they beat the Pacers by 24 points in Indianapolis. They started that game with the double big lineup, and it was awesome at the start. Like, you can have success playing two bigs. I think you probably have to be creative with how you do it, but I didn't understand why we didn't see that at all. Like, I didn't understand why before the series even started, the Thunder just kind of decided, hey, maybe this isn't our best look. Maybe this isn't our favorite look. Maybe this isn't the look that we want to close games with all the time. but we're not even going to try it. We're just going to punt. We're just going to say, we'll see if it works next year. That didn't make sense to me because and I think the field out point's a really good one, Rylan. But as these series go on, that's when you start to see teams make these adjustments. And it felt like the Thunder were adjusting to something they didn't need to adjust to. And I do wonder if that is kind of the moment maybe being a little bit too big. I will say I have more questions about what went wrong for Oklahoma City that I would like to ask you if we get time. But I think that they should, despite the fact that they lost game 1 at home, and you never feel good if you lose game 1 at home, I think they should have a lot of hope moving forward in this series still.
Why should they have hope? What else went wrong? And is Indiana firmly in the driver's seat, or is this just a fun story for a little bit? We'll have it all coming up on today's Locked On NBA Game Night podcast. But first, I want to say to you right now, but our good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because FanDuel is awesome. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-tying or game-winning shot, a breakout player, and never, ever being a better time than now to get on the action than FanDuel's right now to make every single game mean more for you. They have player props and performance trends and everything that you would want to get in on the action. Right now, if you sign up at FanDuel, if you place that first $5 bet and it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets for that first $5 bet. If it wins, $200 in bonus bets. And you can go there at FanDuel.com and see that the Thunder are 11-point favorites in game 2. You're going to want to get in on that line right now at FanDuel.com. Go check it out today at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On NBA Game Night podcast talking to you about the Thunder Pacers finals. Going to play buy or sell later on. Danny, what else do you think went wrong for OKC besides the experimentation of their starting lineup and, not capitalizing off of fast break points?
I mean, the thing I want to harp on is why couldn't they score off turnovers? Like that is what I don't necessarily completely understand. And part of it, I think the Pacers all year long have been the best transition team in basketball. Maybe not the leaders in fast break points, but certainly I think they had the best margin between like their fast break points and what they allowed. But why did you think that was such a big struggle for them? What did you see that led you to believe, okay, this is why the Thunder have created, I mean, maybe they don't create all of them, but this is why they created 25 turnovers and they've only scored 11 points off of them. Like I would have to imagine, and I wish I would have looked this up before, but I would have to imagine that is near their season low for points off turnovers in the game.
Yeah, it is awful. And I think that the biggest reason why was because of that forceful play. And I really hate to do the hacky stuff of like, was the moment too big for them? But you look at it's a make or miss league, and the missed threes in transition, okay, like threes are volatile, so that doesn't really mean much to me. But the missed layups of not going up with any sort of aggressiveness at the rim was a big deal to me. And the times in which they would get a turnover and then half-heartedly get across the timeline and then have to reset, or Chet Holmgren going coast to coast on Turner and taking just a shred of contact on a perfectly legal contest by Turner and he can't finish through it. Like that kind of stuff. The missed layups were a big deal to me, and it just comes back to playing with offensive force. And the thing that I think the Thunder should be the most concerned about is in that fourth quarter, Indiana stopped turning the ball over. And a significant chunk of those 24 turnovers for Indiana was kind of just uncomfortability, was them not understanding the levels to the Thunder's switching style of defense. And once they figure that out of how athletic the Thunder are and how they can kind of disguise coverages, they did stop throwing the ball all over the floor, to where as that turnover number comes down, because I do not think the Thunder can force 24 turnovers again on Sunday, so does your chances to score off of turnovers. And so then now they mean those possessions mean even more than they typically do, because you need an even wider margin, because that's what the Thunder are built on, is by building that margin with the fast break. But also a credit to Indiana, who unlike Minnesota and Denver, you go back and watch those turnovers that they had, they quite literally just quit. Like you could watch Nikola Jokic on all fours whenever he gets the ball taken away from him. Just look up and watch the Thunder go dunk it. You can look at Julius Randle not even moving a centimeter after the Thunder turn him over for the 5th time. And unlike that with Indiana, no matter how much that turnover snowball kept rolling down the hill, every single time that they made an effort to get back. And once you make that effort, any sort of slight disruption could be enough to get a stop and enough to, of course, save the possession and make you feel better about that turnover. So Indiana did a great job too, but the Thunder have to just be more aggressive. And the aggression level was completely off from the heavy favorites.
So one of the other things that sticks out to me too, and it felt like this watching it, and I think that there are some of these things that you can notice in real time and then go back and maybe pull up the box score later, or even pull up the box score during the game for sort of like that just like confirmation of your thoughts. It felt like the ball is really sticky for the Thunder offensively. Like it just didn't feel like they had their normal ball movement. And, they were a relatively high assist percentage team during the regular season. The Pacers were a middle of the pack team in terms of opponent assists. OKC only had 13 assists offensively. Now, they didn't shoot the ball all that great in this game. They were 39 of 98. So it's not as if they, made 50 baskets and only had 13 assists. They had assists on essentially a third of their baskets. But why did you think that was so low? Like, why did you feel like it was so sticky for them offensively?
I think that they weren't making quick enough decisions, especially as that game went on. And Isaiah Hartenstein talked about this too, of the Thunder kind of slowed their own pace down a little bit too much on the offensive end. And, Indiana circles can push back on that and say, well, don't you want to slow down the Pacers? Well, no, you don't want to slow down the Pacers at all if it's just your offense being slowed down. Because if you slow your offense down, then you miss the shots and the Pacers are out rebounding you. Now the Pacers get to play at the exact pace that they want to, the exact tempo that they want to. And that's, I think, what happened where you go from this beautiful style of basketball where you're passing the ball, 2, 3, 4 times in the possession to try to create advantages to, hey, let's dribble it out. Let's kind of run the ball here in a football analogy and try to get out of this game. The Thunder kind of settled into that prevent, in this case, offense, so to say, too early. And I think that also hurt them in the fast break. I mean, how many times could they have made one more pass in transition and gotten a cleaner look or gotten a different advantage? The Thunder also didn't try to, make the second pass. They'd make the first pass, for example, to get the ball to whoever Halliburton's defending, and then they drive on them. They bend the defense. Then they have to make a kick out. And then that one more swing could have gotten them a wide open shot instead of just a good shot. And it's like those little things added up over the course of the game. But it also, an insignificant part of it would be they just missed their shots. Like right. if they hit more of their shot attempts, that assist rate goes up because a lot of them were outside of Shea, who had a great isolation game, but a lot of those shots that they missed were potential assists for this roster. So yeah, they got to make their shots, obviously, but there's other stuff that they could have done.
What do you think the Pacers look at as things? Because when you win a game by 1 point in the finals, I think it's a really interesting place to be for the winning team too, because it's not as if Rick Carlisle and that coaching staff and that group of players is sitting there between these games thinking, man, we have figured out the Thunder. We really took care of business. Like, no, they won a game by 1 point in which they had 25 turnovers. Like there's a lot to clean up. And one of the things, Rylan, that I look at is I think that you bring up wanting to slow the Pacers down in certain respects, I think. Not that Oklahoma City doesn't play fast as well. I actually think there should be more opportunities for the Pacers to try and get out and run in game 2. I know it certainly feels like a lot of force where even after a made basket by the Thunder or whoever the Pacers opponent is, where they have the basketball in a position to score with 4 seconds gone off the shot clock, like it happens very, very fast. But I think there were times during that game where I almost sensed a little bit of apprehension because of how good that Thunder defense is by the Pacers, where instead of trying to sprint the ball up, they're just trying to locate every defender and be careful as opposed to being aggressive. And I wonder if that's something we see different from them in game 2 on Sunday night.
Yeah, it's interesting because to me, the biggest key is they're not going to turn the ball over 24 times. Like they're just not going to. And they stopped turning the ball over in this game. I mean, Their last turnover in this game came with over 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They just outright quit turning it over. And if that happens, that by nature makes Indiana better, because even against this defense, I know it's a 1-game sample size, but this is a historically great defense that actually did change a little bit how they were defending the corner 3 spot. It wasn't perfect, but they did contest corner 3s more in this game than they typically have the last 2 years of their identity. You look at the quarter breakdowns, they made 47% of their shots in the first quarter, Indiana did. Then it dipped down to 38% of their shots. But then in the second half, they were electrifying. I mean, they made 52% of their shots in the third quarter, and then we know what they did in the fourth quarter, absolutely dominating and making half their shots. So it all evened out to where you're making half the shots you put up, but you can get even more shots up if you're not turning it over 24 times. And a lot of those turnovers were, obviously the Thunder have quick hands and they stole some of those, but all those turnovers were, hey, I got caught in the air because I was trying to do too much, not anticipating the switch from OKC, and I threw it across the court to the other side. Or the Thunder are great at drawing offensive fouls, and those just come with the nature of playing OKC. But you cut out some of those silly ones. Plus, you dominate the rebounding edge, and you're able to score at such a high clip, even against this great Thunder defense, that sounds simple of just eliminating the turnovers, but that's going to make them better. And then I think that another area of it is going to be having Halliburton and Siakam play more aggressive, looking to score early on. And I think that even if it doesn't work in the sense of like production, like if Halliburton and Siakam are looking for their shots, and they just so happen to be missing, I think that the Thunder will still respect them enough to play that super aggressive and swarming style of trying to put both of those guys in a crowd, which then opens the floor up for their role players who are so capable of hitting shots both at home and on the road. And in game one, they knocked down 6 threes in the fourth quarter to get the win. So it's like, if you can convince like Siakam and Halliburton to be even more aggressive as score first guys, then that naturally over the course of 2 years now, we've seen that break down the Thunder defense and let up open corner threes. That what's made the Thunder so good is that they get those threes to guys that are streaky, and sometimes those guys have it, like PJ Washington, for a whole series. Sometimes they only have it for one game or not at all. So Indiana would feel pretty good about their chances if they're able to do that. So I'd say Halliburton, who have the moment of the game, especially Halliburton, could have been much more aggressive as a scorer earlier in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a theme with Tyrese. Like you all, and it's crazy to say this about somebody who's having such a great postseason, but you can go back and watch game one, and it feels as if he could have been more aggressive in the first 24 minutes, particularly. You go back to Indiana's last series, the Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks. Like he has this all-time great performance in game 4, and then game 5 comes out and he's just a super passive player. Like he doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say he doesn't look interested, but he looks as if he's trying to help other guys do the big thing as opposed to going out and taking it the way that we're so used to superstars doing it. So I do wonder, what version of him are we going to get? Are we going to see him be this super aggressive guy, the same guy that showed up in game 4 against the Knicks, or are we going to see the guy that showed up in game 5 against the Knicks that was very passive? And I do think it's easy to look at this series, if you're the Pacers, and say, well, we got one on the road. That's what we set out to do. Now, I don't think that's how that team is built. And of course, they have won 2 games on the road, both in conference finals and in the conference semifinals against the Knicks and Cavs, respectively. I don't think they're going to do it against the Thunder. I really like OKC in game 2 on Sunday night, but I'm very curious to see what version of Tyrese Halliburton we get in game 2.
Coming up, let's play an edition of Buy or Sell with the NBA Finals, including the court itself. We're back on Locked On NBA Game Night Podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Rylan, Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. That's Danny Cunningham, host of Locked On Cavs. Danny, buy or sell, the Thunder, in your opinion, should go back to that starting 5 of Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein together, flanked by Dort, Shea, and J-Dub.
I'm buying this because I'm sure you can dive more into the metrics, and I know you know all of that stuff because you cover that team every single day. And I know that that's not their best group, But I kind of think that's part of what their identity is. And yes, I know Case and Wallace, as you mentioned, started 40 games this year. A lot of that, I would imagine, was because Chet Holmgren only played 30-something games. And Isaiah Hartenstein, he also missed a big chunk of time with injury this year. So that was kind of the result of Oklahoma City not being super healthy during the regular season, as opposed to that being the better option. So I am buying this. I think they should go back to it. I think it would kind of be maybe acknowledgement of, hey, maybe we over adjusted when we didn't need to. We're going to go back to just being the Thunder, and being the Thunder is good enough. And that's what we are.
Yeah, I think that in this case scenario, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you do go back to it, listen, these starting lineups come out 30 minutes before tip off. Everybody's just eager to get their takes off. So if they go back to it now, then it's like, aha, you didn't want to do this. You overthought it, and how silly are you? And then if you stay with the starting five, then for 30 minutes at least, you're stubborn and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a tough position for a coach to be in. I find it really difficult to imagine how the Thunder defense can maximize itself with their two bigs on the floor. I think that offensively, the spacing's a bit worse for Chet to try to get him going, specifically as a guy who did not have anywhere close to a solid game one. However, with Hartenstein in there, which you're not going to bench Chet. So with Hartenstein in there, his playmaking could make it easier for the Thunder's half-court offense to jumpstart itself right out of the gate. I think that Mark is a smart enough and talented enough head coach that he could scheme up a way, whether it's playing zone or cross-matching, to make it work, where you have Holmgren, Hartenstein, and J-Dub on the floor at all times, trying to, in the starting five, trying to defend Siakam and Turner specifically. And then you do lose one perimeter defender to try to take on Halliburton and Nembhard and Nesmith, which is going to be very difficult for them as well. I think that I would buy the double big lineup getting a chance in game two. Starting it, though, again, it's about the perception, I think, of now going back to your double bigs. You should have flip-flopped it in that case, I think, if you were Mark and you wanted to just change it. So I'll buy it, though. I think that you do see the Thunder head back to their traditional luck.
Do you think he regrets making that change? If you gave Mark Daignault truth serum, do you think he regrets making that starting lineup change for game one of the finals?
I don't think so, because it again, I know that Matt Moore ripped me a new one for saying that it worked. It didn't work to win them the game. It worked to get them control of the game and have the chance to win the game. And when the Thunder played a big on the floor with that lineup, it worked. I don't care about single game plus minus. I thought we were past that as analysts to talk about single game plus minus of Case and Wallace, who was excellent.
Society.
Dude, I thought we were above it. Like Case and Wallace, yes, he didn't have his best stuff on offense. Hello, nobody did. Their offense was Shea, Isaiah Hartenstein putbacks, and Lou Dort threes. That's not a good offense. It wasn't good for anybody. So it's like, it wasn't good for Chet either, and it wasn't great for Hartenstein, who just had a nice cleanup opportunities in this game. But Hartenstein did do wonders on the glass and to help them out. Where they got in trouble was going away from bigs entirely. I would have rather seen the Thunder have a big on the floor for the closing moments of this game. I mean, you saw it from the point of the lane violation. I think that the lane violation was entirely due to the Thunder being overzealous and trying to overcompensate for their lack of size. And it gave the Pacers a point, and they lost by a point. And sometimes it is that simple. I think that that's where he might have overthought it. I think that he might have overthought it closing small. I think that he might have overthought it, keeping Shea on a regular season rotation and not bringing him back in at the 9-minute mark. Because I think that he thought, well, J-Dub just got this pick six, dunk after TJ McConnell had to throw it in after almost getting a 5-second call. Let's see if J-Dub can parlay this. No, you take that dunk and you say, okay, thanks, J-Dub. Let's get Shea back in there because we have no idea what's going to happen next. And you'd rather have the MVP on the floor. So I think that those are the areas where you could critique Mark, and people just kind of look to the starting lineup because it's kind of low-hanging fruit and kind of easier. I do think that the lineup, defensively especially, worked, because no lineup worked offensively. So it did work to me, and it did execute what they wanted to try. And they have played this style of solo big the majority of the time here, just because of injuries also. But even the Minnesota series, again, it's surface level, because the starting lineup in the Minnesota series the entire time was the double big lineup. And so people just think that that's what got them here. Isaiah Hartenstein hardly played in the Western Conference Finals. They played Chet at the center, and they played solo big minutes the entire Western Conference Finals, because that's what was working. That's what got them, the win in 5. So they had already made the alteration and carried that over into this. And I do think it is playing the result for me, because I was saying before the series that they should have a single big lineup start the game. So I'm not going to now say, well, it didn't work, so this was stupid. Like there was a real reason to do it, and so I think that that's what happened there. Danny, buy or sell? The NBA has to do a better job of promoting the finals on the court. You see the reports of like the NBA looking into putting it back on the court. They took it off because of slippage back in the day. Where are you at? Does it bother you? Do you not care? Buy or sell that they need to bring it back?
I'm buying this all the way. It drives me nuts that they don't make this visually feel like the big deal that it is. There's nothing bigger in basketball than the NBA finals. If we can have special courts for the NBA Cup in November and December that mean nothing, we can't have it for the finals? Like, are you kidding me? I had to watch this year in person a game between the Cavs and Boston Celtics in Boston played on a green court. It's horrific to watch. But you can tell me that is okay. That can be done. But you can't get the Larry O'Brien trophy on the floor in June? Are you serious right now? Like that is, it's so absurd to me that the NBA cannot figure out the way to make the thing that is the biggest deal it has actually feel, at least visually, like it's the biggest deal it has. Put the trophy back on the floor. Those old photos from, like, there's one of LeBron playing in San Antonio in his first Cleveland stint in the finals with the Larry O'Brien trophy, but behind the Spurs logo, of course, Kobe Bryant. Like, there are all these iconic finals moments and images played on floors like that. We never had to stop doing that. We should get back to doing that. And also, the script logo needs to be prevalent. Like, that is one of the best logos there is. It's one of the best things the NBA has. Why it went away from it for a little bit, I will never know, but that needs to be a big part of this too.
I'm buying this completely. I mean, going into the arena, if you would have woken someone up from a coma and just said, "Hey, we're going to a basketball game," and didn't tell them what month it was, didn't tell them what series it was, it's a regular season game, in the sense of how it looked in the arena, much less on television, of just like, oh yeah, this is, I mean, they have a YouTube TV ad painted on the court. That's the only difference of the Paycom Center court. That's insane to me because, like you mentioned, we had to watch them play on a navy blue, just dumb NBA Cup court, which I thought added, like, they understood the assignment of adding legitimacy to the Cup. And how do you miss the boat on this with the finals? And it goes even deeper than that. It's like the jerseys. The jerseys have the patch on the back, above the name tag. In the iconic photos, you never see it. You go back and you watch
get that ad money, man.
You got to get the ad money, and it's just it's mind-boggling because you go back and you watch these finals games and highlights and photos, and it's so prevalent everywhere. The court, the jerseys, the warm-up. When they still have them on the warm-ups, but like the starting intro. You remember the starting introductions were broadcasted, and they had inflatable Larry O'Brien trophies that they ran through. Like, it was everywhere. It was the thing. It was the thing. And then you look at how the Super Bowl and every other sport does it. The World Series is painted on the field. The Super Bowl's at midcourt. And I get it that, like, it's easier to paint a field, especially in baseball where it's like not in the field of play, World Series or whatever, than it is to get the hardwood. But it's obviously doable. You did it for years and years and years. And then you'd currently do it, like you mentioned, for the NBA Cup. So, it's just, I don't know what you have to do. That you clearly found technology to make the NBA Cup courts safe. So even if you had to buy 30 courts of every single team having one, sure. I mean, you're a $1 trillion company. You can afford it to kind of get the courts in there.
I feel like that Mark Jackson meme, the "what happened to the game I love." That's what I feel like discussing this. Like, it just makes me sad. It makes me sad that and I hate to be like the old guy, get off my lawn, or, back in my day, it was better. Like, I'm in my early 30s. I'm not old, but when I was a kid, it felt like the NBA made it a bigger deal, and that's how it should be. This should feel, and like the game itself was awesome. And I expect game 2 to be awesome, and game 3 and game 4 and game 5, and however long this goes. Like, this is not commentary on the actual product, but everything around the product isn't making it feel as if it's as big of a deal as it actually is. And I think for the common fan, that is not a good thing. For you and I, we're going to watch no matter what. But I think for the common fan, and I cannot stand the rating talk, but I think for the common fan, there need to be more things that are very easily seen, but don't need to be explained, that sort of tell you, oh, this is a really, really big deal.
Yeah, and it has to be. And I mean, it's from the court. It's from the marketing behind it. It's from the broadcasting partners. I mean, like your broadcasting partners have to treat this like it is the Super Bowl. Like it is your version of the Super Bowl. Like you have to tell people it's a big deal, because like there are those casual fans out there, and that's who swings ratings, folks. Like the NBA doesn't have less diehard fans now that they have the worst viewership of all time, blah, blah, blah. Like that's the fact that they only have diehard fans. The NFL is king because they have the casual fans, and they sell the casual fans on every game needing to be watched, every game needing to be an event, and especially the Super Bowl needing to be an event. The NBA has not lost diehard fans. They've lost casual fans to actually get to their televisions and actually sit down and watch the game broadcast. And these little things do matter. So I am buying that it matters. But Danny, do you want to change your NBA Finals prediction? You can go find them on Twitter, Locked On Podcast Network, where we put out the graphic of all of the predictions.
I would probably, I mean, I'm not going to change it because I'm not a coward. I would probably go Thunder in 6 at this point, but I picked Thunder in 5, and I see a world in which they can win the next 4. What about you?
Oh, I don't see that world, brother. I'm having a hard time getting
68 games. They have the MVP. Like they can win the next 4. They can. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's a world where that can happen.
I get you. I mean, it's mathematically possible. I'll go on that edge, but it's like this is a team that hasn't shot the ball well all postseason. Role players play better at home, and they didn't show up in one of the home games. Cleveland's going to have, Indiana's going to have, it should be Cleveland. Indiana's going to have a 3-point barrage.
They couldn't make shots either.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I think Indiana's just a special squad. I don't think that this will end any shorter than 6. I don't think that this will end likely in 6 for either team. I pick Thunder in 6. Before the series, I think it's going to go the distance now and be a very, very, very fun series. But we'll see how it ends up playing out. Go follow him at Denny Cunningham on Locked On Cavs. Follow me on Locked On Thunder. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.